Well, thank you for coming. It's a disadvantage of sitting at the front. I didn't realize how many people there were behind me. I'm going to follow the structure. I'll start by talking about me. I'm David McKercher. I articled in Toronto for a year with a small civil litigation firm. I did 2 years in Toronto as a staff duty counsel with the Legal Aid Duty Counsel office there doing criminal defense work. I came to Ottawa, spent 5 years with the Department of Justice doing criminal law policy work. And for the last 30 years, I've been a federal crown prosecuting federal cases, first for the Department of Justice and for the last 10 years with the Public Prosecution Service of Canada, which puts me in the unenviable position of saying, I'm here from the government and I'm going to help you. Which raises the question, why would you vote for a prosecutor as a bencher? An obvious response would be, well, the Law Society does prosecutions, but the heart of prosecutions is not prosecuting people winning cases. It's determining which cases are appropriate to prosecute and what method to follow where prosecution is appropriate. They also need prosecutors. That's not my interest in running for bencher. I don't stand before you to as a representative of the government if I'm elected as a bencher. In fact, I'm expressly not authorized to speak for the government if I'm elected as a bencher. I will be very strictly divided in terms of what I can say, or at least I would not be able to hold myself out as speaking for the government. They do that very well themselves. The three areas that I'd like to talk about are access, licensing, and governance. Access first. It's impossible to think of the Law Society without thinking of the crisis in legal aid. It's underfunded. It's been underfunded for 20 years. It's not just a criminal law issue. It's immigration law. It's family law. It's across the board. There is a funding problem with the legal aid program. It's a very important issue and one that the Law Society can speak to. They don't bring a lot of money to the table anymore, but they can certainly act as a conscience for the Government of Ontario, which is the gatekeeper of any funding decisions in the province, presumably for the next 4 years, and any successor government. I'm not going to suggest that one government is more generous than another, because in my experience they haven't been. We had the Liberals before, we have the Conservatives now, we had the NDP once upon a time, and funding issues were always problematic. Licensing we're in the realm of the size of the profession. We have a big profession, and it's getting bigger. We recently brought in paralegals to the fold, but in sheer numbers, when I was called to the bar in 1982, there were 10,000 lawyers in Ontario. Now there are 53,000. During that time, the population of Ontario has gone from 10 million to 14.7 million. So the increase in lawyers is way out of proportion to the increase in population. And the licensing issues are about a fair and responsible way of bringing new people into the profession. And that brings me to the statement of principle, which everyone's talked about. It's an important issue. Whether it's flawed or not is another issue, but it's an important reminder that there are challenges faced by people that are obvious. If you're white, it's obvious enough to forget about those problems because everybody has problems. But the statement of principle reminds you this is a level playing field. Diversity is all our future. I'll move on to governance because I'm running out of time.
You've got 35 seconds.
I'm going to skip governance. The last question is, what do we do about hearing from the members? I'm certainly open to anybody talking to me at any time if I'm elected. If I'm not, don't bother. But consultation is very important, meaningful consultation, and feedback from the people you're hearing from. And if any of you has an idea that you'd like to advance, articulate it, send it to me, explain why it's an improvement on the way things are done now, and I will hear you.